doing? This is Black Shy Guy. Welcome to a brand new episode. And as always, make sure you subscribe if you're not a resident of Chi-Town as of yet. And also hit the notification button to get notified on any upcoming new videos. And as well, make sure you hit the like button because it really helps out the channel. As always, thank you for sitting at my table. Let's dive into what has been happening with Sheryl Swoops. I'm going to start that conversation because Sheryl Swoops has been an abomination when it comes to the greatest women's basketball player from back in the day. She's definitely not one to idle at this point in time. Everybody knows what has transpired between her and Stephen A. Smith when Stephen A. Smith called her out for the simple fact that she named every single Indiana Fever player with the exception of Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, who has become a phenom. Caitlin Clark, who has been driving ticket sales, who has been driving the market for the WNBA into a stratosphere that they have never seen ever since its release. WNBA has been an atrocity, has been basically bankrupt almost every year. But now Caitlin Clark is here. It has reached monumental status. And for some odd reason, Sheryl Swoops had no excuse to leave Caitlin Clark out when she was talking about the Indiana's improvement after the Olympic break. When Caitlin Clark is basically the sole reason as to why Indiana Fever has become monumentally better than they have in since the first year of their season. Obviously, we all know Mitchell has been freaking amazing. We all know Boston has picked up her game. We all know Hall has been hitting threes from the damn parking lot now. But the fact that you don't mention Caitlin Clark being the reason as well as to why Indiana Fever are above 500 now is mind-boggling. Stephen A. called her out, obviously, and this is what Sheryl Swoops had to say. This is one of her tweets because we're going to dive into what Stephen A. was saying about Sheryl Swoops, but he's going to say it while he's in a conversation with one of the other all-time greats who also, to this day, now we found out she has had a problem with Sheryl Swoops. And I'm going to let her say that from her mouth. You're not going to hear it from me. But I want to show you this tweet from Sheryl Swoops to Stephen A. Smith. Let me completely remove myself from here so you can see it. You talk about whomever and whatever you want to on your podcast, correct? So why can't I? Also, did you listen to the entire episode? Nope. I have personal relationship with these players and they deserve recognition. Obviously, Stephen A. came back and obviously he told her, yes, I did listen to the whole episode and not once did you mention Caitlin Clark's name, which is facts. She did not mention Caitlin Clark's name at all. Sheryl Swoops is lying once again, and she's embarrassing herself. She's embarrassing herself tremendously. I don't understand what's going on with Sheryl Swoops, her distaste for Caitlin Clark, and it's kind of understandable. It's kind of understandable, but you'll look better if you just admit it. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna dive in to more of this drama. We're gonna go into Stephen A's podcast that he just released last night, which was a very interesting interview with Lieberman. A very interesting interview. I want you guys to witness this. If you haven't witnessed this, watch this in its entirety on the Stephen A. Smith podcast. Let's dive in. Lieberman interview that I want all you guys to witness. It was a very, very good interview. Stephen A. Smith hit all the damn corners when it came to this interview. Let's dive in. Let's continue.
Welcome, Nancy. Let's get right to it. You did an outstanding job covering Sunday's Indiana Fever's win over the Dallas Wings. I call this the golden era of the WNBA. First things first, would you agree with that?
I do apologize before I continue. This is going to be a lengthy video. I can divide it into 2 parts, or I might not. But I will try to title every single section of the video so you can skip to what you want to listen to. Once again, I really appreciate you for sitting at my table. Let's continue.
I agree 100%. This is what we all dreamed about, and it's actually happening in real time. And today's players are absolutely phenomenal. The W is the most valued women's league, in my opinion, in the world right now.
In college, Caitlin Clark was named the winner of the Nancy Lieberman Point Guard of the Year 2 years in a row, if I remember correctly. I want to play something you said during the broadcast. Listen to this.
You know, when I walked in here before the game, there were just hundreds of fans lined up.
Oh, yeah.
What Caitlin Clark has done for the game is generational. And I just, as a baller to a baller, I just want to say thank you to you, Caitlin Clark.
Absolutely.
For just lifting our game up, you and so many great players. But what you're doing, you're going to make all these women multimillionaires one day, like Tiger did, like Michael Jordan did. And we shouldn't hate on her. We should celebrate her, not tolerate her.
That was such a great statement by Nancy Lieberman. Nancy Lieberman, someone who gets it. Nancy Lieberman, one of the all-time greats for the WNBA. Nancy Lieberman, the one who actually gave the roses to Caitlin Clark for propelling the WNBA to a status that they thought they would never see. She gets it, unlike someone else we know about.
You know, Nancy, I listened to that sound, and that was one of the biggest reasons I wanted you on today, because you clearly feel such a level of appreciation for the greatness, for the potential and the greatness that we're witnessing from Caitlin Clark. I want you to speak to why that is and whether or not you feel she's being appreciated enough by some members in the female basketball community.
Well, I think you bring up a great point. It's so important for us to understand that there's going to be generational players. I'm not saying everybody's not going to be at the same talent level.
Notice what she's saying, and listen closely to what she's saying, because Nancy Lieberman was amazing in this interview. She hit it so perfectly. She hit it to where someone who's even senile should understand what she's saying. Listen to what she says closely, please.
But I'm saying that Caitlin Clark has just caught the attention of the world. She might be right now, maybe her and Simone Biles, the most visible women athletes in the world right now. And this is a good thing for sports. And internally, we can be women. We could be our worst enemies. We should embrace people who take us to another level. And she's done that, and it's proven from her collegiate days with TV, with jersey sales, with arenas being filled. Why wouldn't you want to ride that train to success? Because it will change your tax bracket, incrementally because of what she's doing. And there's so many great players like A'ja Wilson. She's my unanimous MVP in this league. I don't think there's a player in the world right now better than A'ja Wilson. And we got great rookies. Angel Reese just, broke this incredible rebounding record, single season in WNBA history. These young players, Rakia Jackson, Carmela Cardoza. I mean, this is a great time. But it's the veterans and the youth. We have to come together because everybody has a hand in our growth. And, as good as some of the we didn't move the needle like Caitlin is moving the needle, and everybody is benefiting from it.
Everybody benefits from this. Everyone. And she just admitted it. They did not move the needle the way Caitlin Clark moves the needle. Caitlin Clark moves the needle like no other player has done before. Taurasi was a great one. Don't get it twisted. Taurasi was great, but she didn't move the needle like Caitlin Clark. She didn't have the it factor like Caitlin Clark. There's a lot of things in this interview that basically they put the stamp on. There's no other way that this conversation should continue after watching this interview, because everything was labeled for you to understand clearly. And if you wish to continue the debate, whether it be because of Rookie of the Year, whether it be because who's better and who's not better, etc. It's because you just want the drama. You just want the drama. This goes for everyone who continues to drive this narrative of trying to pit both players against each other, trying to basically develop a narrative when it comes to one player hating another. There is only competitiveness. It's only competitive. There's only competition going on here. But as well, what I want to say is there is a narrative that I think it is true. I think it is true. There's a lot of jealousy when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Absolutely. Sheryl Swoops is a big example. But let's continue.
You know, Nancy, I've been bringing this up for months, and I've been taking hits for months because I wanted her on Team USA, and I was not trying to say that she was better than any of the 12 players that was on the squad. What I was saying is that female basketball, women's basketball has been starving for recognition for so long. All the hard work, all the tremendous effort, the blood, sweat, and tears that so many of these wonderful ladies have put into the game, including yourself, by the way. And the lack of recognition that has come along with it. Here was a person that America had gravitated to in such a way that you could utilize it to your advantage to benefit everybody. Yet folks were appalled that I would dare have the temerity to bring up marketing and promotion as something that should play a role in ultimately you deciding who's on Team USA to promote the game of basketball. Was I wrong in feeling that way?
Well, they came at you really hard, and that was short-sighted because, first of all, she very well could have played and should have played. In my opinion, I align with you on Team USA. I'm saying this, as you know, I'm still the youngest Olympic basketball player ever. In 1976, I was a high school senior. I was 17 years old. And the late Billy Moore, the Hall of Famer, my coach, she had one pick, and she picked me for the future of the game because she knew the last player who was a great and All-American, just a star of stars, wouldn't get a lot of minutes. So she used that position, and I thought that this team could have used Caitlin Clark for that same express reason.
That's all they needed Caitlin Clark for. She wasn't going to play a tremendous amount of minutes. Caitlin Clark was just going to play basically almost 1 minute, maybe under 2 minutes, the most in each game. That's all Caitlin Clark needed. That's all you needed to propel the commercializing of that team. Jerseys would have sold more. Caitlin Clark Olympic jersey would have sold like crazy. But they didn't want that. They didn't want to market her. This is the part of the narrative that I do believe is true. That the hate Caitlin Clark does receive from some of the veterans and some of the old school players is true. That's not freaking conjured up from nowhere. It's true. It's facts.
And because she was going to bring more eyeballs, she was going to make USA basketball, more prominent. And we're talking about economics here. We're not just talking about,
right.
because. We're talking about we want long-term, sustainability and success. We can't sit there and say we want what the NBA guys have, 70-something years later. They've built it to, that $8 billion a year business. And we're trying to build it now. And we have somebody who's moving the needle because the W right now is outdrawing Major League Baseball, some, soccer, some of the golf, some of the other sports.
Once again, this interview is so amazing. I really enjoyed this interview because Nancy's just hitting on all cylinders. The WNBA, do you know, is basically outpacing in viewership some of the freaking Major League Baseball games. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that WNBA games are eclipsing other sports? I never would have thought about that. I mean, when the Fevers was playing the last couple of days, one at 4 p.m., the other at 7 p.m., my whole day was prepared just for those 2 games. My whole day was scheduled for those 2 games. And I'm not the only one doing that. There's tons of millions of people doing that. Their whole day is prepared just to watch Caitlin Clark play. just to watch the other teams play. Because now it's so fun watching the Liberties play. I love watching Sabrina because Caitlin Clark brought me to the WNBA. Now I'm noticing other talent. Let's continue.
Sports, we've never had this before. And for Caitlin and the Fever, I think 5 of the highest rated games this year have all been Indiana Fever. They lead in jersey sales. They lead in attendance. Any significant category that's tied to dollars and cents.
Dollars.
And that's how we should be viewed, dollars and cents, because that's how you build a business. Then everybody goes up and everybody is successful together.
Boom. Every business should be viewed as dollars and cents, not feelings and how you feel and this and that and the third. Nobody cares about your feelings. Dollars and cents don't care about your feelings. There's a lot of narratives being pushed. Of course, there's a lot of narratives being pushed by media, by content creators. But one thing that is not being pushed that is a lie, one thing that I truly believe is basically does exist, is that some of the hate and jealousy when it comes to Caitlin Clark, that I believe does exist. Let's continue.
Explain what specifically you believe the issue is with Caitlin Clark in terms of the lack of support that she's received from some. Certainly not most, not all. Most people support her. They see her potential. They see her greatness. They see what she's done for the game. There's a level of appreciation. Even the great Dawn Staley, you know, in winning the national championship, she thanked Caitlin Clark for what Caitlin Clark did for the game, or for women's basketball or whatever. But there's been a small cadre of individuals that obviously have come across in a different fashion. What is the thing that you're hearing, Nancy, as to what their justification for feeling a bit reticent about throwing that lack of that support in Caitlin Clark's direction?
Great question.
Well, it depends who you're talking to. If you're talking about the keyboard warriors who hide behind, 280, taps of their iPhone.
Listen closely to what Nancy is going to say about the keyboard warriors, and I do believe this also includes some content creators as well, because we're to blame. Not only the media, not only the news media, content creators are also to blame for a lot of the narratives that are being pushed between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. It's just a fact.
Or whatever they're using. They're going to say something that, first of all, they don't even realize that the players in this league are friends with one another. Okay, so you might sit there and try to create this animosity, or you might try to bring in, racism in this, and there's no racism. You and I've been through this for a long time. I never came down the court and looked at somebody white or black and threw the ball to the white kid. I'm throwing it to the player who's the better player. They're trying to pit Angel and Caitlin against each other. They're friends, by the way. They're helping grow the sport. And for those who, it's not a Caitlin thing, it's a people thing. I mean, people were so jealous of Michael Jordan back in 1984 when he came out of, UNC. Chicago Stadium was half empty prior to him arriving.
She's hitting on all cylinders. Like I said, if you want to watch this whole interview, go to the Stephen A. Smith podcast. I will have the link down in the description, because all respects to Stephen A. for pulling out this interview with Nancy. It was amazing. But she is hitting on all cylinders. It's a people thing. There are a lot of people driving a narrative that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, that Angel Reese believes that everything is racially motivated with Caitlin Clark, etc. Yes, she made some comments that she should have kept to herself. Absolutely. But do they hate each other? I think not. And she knows them more than I do. So I'm going to go with what she's saying. They do not hate each other. Is there a competitiveness between them? Absolutely. Why not? Why does Angel Reese not want to be better than Caitlin Clark, despite the different positions that they have? A forward and a guard. Angel Reese is going to want to be known to be better than Caitlin Clark. She's competitive. I mean, obviously, the competitiveness drives a person sometimes straight to delusionalville. You know what I mean? When they think they're actually way better than the other. But you can't erase that drive that someone has. But the fact that a lot of content creators, a lot of keyboard warriors, a lot of the news media are driving the narrative that they completely hate each other, that they can't stand each other, is delusional. And I understand a lot of people drive on hate. That's what sells. That's what pushes clicks. That's what pushes basically the arrow keys when it comes to everyone driving to your network, everyone driving to your channel. But I'm one of the people that I'm not going to push that narrative. I'm not always going to make a video stating that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark. Look at the eyes Angel Reese made towards Caitlin Clark. Look at what Caitlin Clark wrote her eyes at Angel Reese, etc. That is the narrative a lot of the content creators and medias are pushing. People who are not even around that circle, people who are looking at it through the television, through the monitors, like you and I are looking through it. What do they know? What do they know? They're just assuming. Everything they're saying are assumptions. But people around them, people around that that circle between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark exactly knows what's going on. And what's going on between those two ladies is a competitive spirit that is not going to be engulfed. It's not going to be engulfed. It's not. It's going to stay ignited. Both girls are highly spirited, highly motivated, highly competitive. So it's going to look like they hate each other. It's going to look like they hate each other.
Then the stadiums were filling up. Then TV wanted him and the Bulls on every game. By the way, you know this as a fact. David Falk, his agent, pulled his jersey out of the GLA because Michael Jordan's jersey, and I don't know the exact number, but let's say it was 90% of all jersey sales were Michael Jordan's jersey, and he was getting like 1/1300th of that, and all the money was being, you know, dispersed throughout all the players.
Yeah, remember that?
He yanked his out because he saw the value of what was happening. Tiger Woods goes to the PGA, changes how the sport is viewed. It's not just a bunch of, you know.
The reason I'm saying that is because a lot of people got mad that Angel Reese released the podcast. She knows her value. She knows the clicks that she brings. So she's going to take advantage of that. She's going to drive her name no matter what way she can. When you get clicks, when your name drives a buzz, when you bring in money, because whether you like Angel Reese or not, she is one of the individuals in the WNBA that's driving the sport. So when she comes out with a podcast, to hate on her for coming out with a podcast is delusional. Because if you were that famous like Angel Reese, you would come out with a podcast yourself. So what the hell are you talking about? Both of these girls are receiving treatment that I have never seen. And if you follow my social media, I rock both of their jerseys, baby. I rock both of their jerseys. I give props to both girls. Do both girls have things that I dislike about them? Absolutely. But I love Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. But the narrative driving between both of them, because of keyboard warriors, content creators, and the news media, is downright getting really disgusting, and it's a real turnoff.
White guys hitting balls in an elitist sport. It's changed. I mean, look at all the guys of color, women of color that play golf now, because it's acceptable. You should be able to do what you love, but it was him who was the catalyst to change. And all of a sudden he gets to a certain point in his career, and people are jealous and envious. You know, he changed the TV ratings. He changed the purses. Did you know, Scotty just win $25 million the other day? That's not because of Scotty. That's because of Tiger Woods. And I just don't understand people. Now you have signature shoes for both men and women because of Michael Jordan. MJ did, and how he and his team constructed business. Caitlin is doing that right now, and she should be supported and not maligned for that.
Exactly. Name brand shoes came about because of Michael Jordan. WNBA players wasn't getting name brand shoes like that. Now it's going to happen because of Caitlin Clark. Yeah, we all know Sabrina had her her kicks out. Sabrina's shoes are fire. I don't know if y'all seen her shoes. Her sneakers are fire. I'm gonna get me a pair. But a lot of the WNBA players now are coming out with sneakers, and that's because of Caitlin Clark. That's because after she landed that deal, and I can't wait for Caitlin Clark sneakers to come out, it's going to be bonkers in the sneaker store. When her sneakers come out, prepare yourself. Caitlin Clark's, I'm telling you right now, I said this in another video I made about Caitlin Clark. When Caitlin Clark sneakers come out, listen, I'm gonna do a close-up. When Caitlin Clark sneakers come out, I guarantee you it's going to be like Michael Jordan's franchise sneakers. It's gonna be a forever type of sneaker. There's gonna be the Caitlin 1s, the Caitlin 5s, the Caitlin 9s, and it's gonna go on forever, especially if she has a monumental career. Forget it. She's gonna be cemented. She's going to be cemented. I'm saying that now. Let's continue.
Kelsey Mitchell has been a star on the Indiana Fever. There is no doubt about that. She has been nothing short of sensational. She's averaging about 19 points per game. She had a big-time game yesterday, which you called. And I just wanted to throw this out there just as a reference point, just to put things in perspective about what Caitlin Clark brings to the table. The average attendance in the 33 games Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have played in this season is 15,746, which leads the WNBA. The average attendance of WNBA games not involving Caitlin Clark is on average 8,490, an 85% drop from games that Caitlin Clark is not participating in. Obviously, the New York Liberty average over 11,000. The Los Angeles Sparks average over 10,000. But the Indiana Fever at 15,746. Yet I'm on the air the other day, and I'm talking about the Indiana Fever, and I had to get on, somebody we both have incredible respect for in Sheryl Swoops.
And my video almost will conclude after this. I know it's been a lengthy video. Bear with me. It's because this interview was so great to listen to, because they hit on all cylinders, like I said. But now they're hitting the Sheryl Swoops topic, which I want to conclude with. Bear with me. Let's dive in.
A champion on every level, one of the greatest players in WNBA history. Because I said, how do you mention the Indiana Fever and all of these other players, and you don't mention Caitlin Clark? And then all of a sudden she gets on me and calls me a coward and all of this other stuff.
Ridiculous.
I don't know what you can say about Sheryl Swoops, but if there's anything that you could say, what would you want to say in terms of the narrative that has been put out there as it pertains to her coverage and her feelings about Caitlin Clark?
The all-new GMC Acadia takes you on even bigger journeys with available Super Cruise hands-free.
Just gonna put skip.
I've known Sheryl since she was in college. I helped do her shoe deal with Nike in 1993. Took her to her first SBs. I've known Sheryl. I've coached her. Have a lot of respect for her.
Listen to it.
I called her when Caitlin was still playing at Iowa, and she had just broken Maravich's record. And it was all over the place, as you and I have discussed, that, there was this quote by Sheryl that said, Caitlin was, 25 years old. She was, however old, 24 years old. She was a fifth-year senior. Right. She was taking 40 shots a game. Her records were illegitimate. And I got off the treadmill and I called her as a friend. And I said, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion. And, you might like Boston. I might like the Yankees. It's okay to have difference of opinions. Well, she got upset with me on the phone. And I was like, Sheryl, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. I'm just sharing. We're talking. And so our relationship it pretty much is not happening at this point. I tried to talk to her at the Final Four. Right. She didn't want to talk to me. My life's.
This is how childish Sheryl Swoops is. This is how childish Sheryl Swoops is. And for anyone who basically agrees with Sheryl Swoops' stand on what Stephen A said and what and with what Nancy Lieberman just stated, you guys are delusional as well, along with Sheryl Swoops. Because to be in that type of mind at that age, it only says that you'll never, ever, because listen, she was removed. She was removed as the analyst and replaced by Nancy Lieberman herself. Because obviously, I don't believe in coincidence when it came to that situation. I believe they removed her for a reason, for the disdain she has for Caitlin Clark. I believe that's why she was removed. There's no coincidence that came about when it came to that situation. Absolutely not. But do you hear that? Someone calls you to basically let you know, hey, get ahead of this. Because there's people that's gonna try to stomp you out for the statement you just made that was incorrect because statistically you were wrong. She refused, and she also negated the friendship because of it.
It's going to be good or great with or without Sheryl Swoops in my life. I'd rather have her in it. But let me tell you the difference. Right. The difference is when the Kennedy Carter thing happened, and I'm doing Michelle Beadle's podcast with Lou Williams and Chandler Parsons. And Michelle says to me, Nancy, what would you tell Caitlin Clark in that situation? And I said to Michelle, look, I'm not here to speak for Caitlin Clark.
I don't want to take all the love out of this interview, but this interview is so enticing that I'm going to at least continue at least 3 to 4 minutes more, because now they're talking about the flagrant fouls that's happening to Caitlin Clark, which is 5 out of 30 something that's happened to her. Flagrant fouls that happened to Caitlin Clark, and the majority of them was from the Chicago Sky. And not only that, everybody knows that Sheryl Swoops also backed up the latest flagrant foul that happened to Caitlin Clark, and she tweeted to that player stating that, hey, I got your back, etc., whatever. You know how bad that makes you look, Sheryl Swoops? You know how bad that makes you look? It almost makes you look like anything against Caitlin Clark, you're for it. That's what you're stating. Let's press on a little bit more, at least 2 minutes, because I do not want to take the shine from Stephen A. Smith. Obviously, I would never take this shine away from Stephen A. Smith. But this interview was so amazing. I would love you guys to just go watch it over his podcast. But for those who are taking the time to watch it on my channel, I really appreciate it.
I'm not going to tell you that. Then she said, what would you do if somebody kind of blindsided you like that? And you know me, I'm straight from New York, straight from Rucker Park. I said I would have gotten up. I would have walked up to whoever did that to me. I would have punched him in the face, and you know the expletive that I used. And I would have said, you know, F off. That is who I am. That is the concentric circle of who I am. And that's my era. And so to her point, Teresa Weatherspoon called me, my dear friend, who I love, respect, and admire. She said, Nancy, I was disappointed what you said. And we had a conversation. And I said, Spoon, I didn't say she should punch Kennedy Carter in her face. I said, this is what I would do if I were blindsided. And I've known Kennedy since she was in high school here in Dallas. I think she's a hell of a player and should have been on the All-Star team.
She is.
But my comment about hitting her wasn't about her. But we had this conversation, which we apparently cannot have with me and Sheryl Swoops.
Exactly. They can't have that conversation with Sheryl Swoops because Sheryl Swoops can't have an adult conversation. Listen. Sheryl Swoops should not be included in anything when it comes to analytical. When it comes to the WNBA. Anything analytical. She should stay on her podcast. Because the only reason her podcast is catching buzz is because people want to catch on the bullshit that she's saying about Caitlin Clark. That's the only reason it's getting clicks. Because she's just full of bullshit. She's just full of bullshit at this point. For what I said, everything in this video I stand behind. When it comes to keyboard warriors, when it comes to people pitting Caitlin against Angel Reese personally, not competitively, but personally. See, you can make a video about two athletic athletes that are basically breaking boundaries when it comes to their sport, when it comes to competitiveness. But when you start going into personal, when you start saying injuries personally doesn't like Caitlin Clark or whatever, like you know them, like you be in their space, that's when I think you cross the line. You don't know them personally to make such a statement. How do you know what Caitlin Clark is thinking when Caitlin Clark is looking at injuries at the on the court? There's some content creators that I've watched. I enjoyed some content creators that I've watched that they made some ridiculous statements like, look, injuries, I know injuries doesn't like this person. I know injuries is thinking, oh my God, I can't believe that. The statements they make are statements like they really know the person personally. Listen, let me know what you think. I would love to hear what you think. This is Black Shy Guy. And as always, thank you for taking the time out to watch my video, despite the fact that you could watch it on the Stephen A. podcast. But make sure you still watch it on the Stephen A. podcast because there's a lot that you missed. There's a lot that I did not include. So go watch it on Stephen A.'s podcast, a podcast that is actually growing. I think he's almost to 800,000 subscribers. Show that love. And as always, thank you for sitting at my table. I'm out of here. Peace.
Arch criminal who must be put away. Another innocent victim of suicidal maniac.